Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Black Star and watched the stars through the massive view screen. The ship was quiet except for the soft hum of the engines. 300 human crew members worked at their stations, doing their jobs like they had done every day for the past 2 years. The Black Star was different from other ships in the galaxy. It was bigger, darker, and built with secrets that most aliens would never understand. For 30 years, humans had worked in hidden shipyards, taking pieces of alien technology and making them better. They learned from every species they met. The tall Zephyrians taught them about strong metal. The smart Nexari showed them about computers. The strange Voidkin helped them understand energy. But the aliens never thought humans were important. They saw humans as workers, not warriors. Humans fixed their machines, dug in their mines, and built their cities. The galaxy was happy to let humans do the boring work, while the real species handled the important things like politics and war. Jake Morrison was 42 years old and had spent 20 years in space. He had brown hair that was getting gray, at the sides and blue eyes that had seen too much. His crew trusted him because he always kept them safe. The aliens respected him because he was polite and never caused trouble. But Jake Morrison had secrets just like his ship. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Carter sat at the tactical station. She was 35 years old with short black hair and quick hands that could work any weapon system ever built. Lisa had been with Jake for 10 years. She understood what the Black Star could really do. The ship looked like a normal military vessel from the outside, but inside it was something the galaxy had never seen before. The peaceful morning ended when Lisa's station started beeping. She looked at her screens and her face went pale. "Captain," she said in a quiet voice, "I'm getting distress signals from New Haven colony." Jake walked over to her station. New Haven was a human colony with 50,000 people. Families lived there. Children played in the streets. It was supposed to be safe. "What kind of distress signal?" Lisa's fingers moved quickly across her controls. The main screen changed to show recorded messages from New Haven. The first message showed a woman with blood on her face. Behind her, buildings were burning. "This is New Haven colony. We are under attack. Unknown ships are bombing our cities. Send help immediately." The second message was worse. A man was screaming into the camera. "They're landing troops. They're taking prisoners. The defense grid is down. Please, someone help us." The message ended with the sound of energy weapons firing. Jake felt something cold in his stomach. "How many ships attacked them?" "At least 50, Captain. Big ones." The attack signatures match Skarn military vessels. The Skarn were a species that looked like giant lizards. They stood 8 feet tall and had scales instead of skin. They believed that strong species should rule weak ones. They had been expanding their territory for years, taking planets from anyone who could not fight back. The Galactic Coalition usually stopped them, but this time was different. Commander Rick Hayes, the chief engineer, came onto the bridge. He was a thin man with smart eyes and hands that were always dirty from working on machines. "Captain, I'm also getting signals from Aurora Prime. Same thing. Skarn ships bombing ground troops. 2 human colonies attacked on the same day. This was not random. This was planned." Jake knew that the Skarn were testing something. They wanted to see if anyone would defend the humans. "Sir," Lisa said, "I'm getting a transmission from Coalition headquarters." The screen changed to show Admiral Frank Butler. He was the highest-ranking human in the Coalition military. Frank was 60 years old with gray hair and a tired face. Behind him, Jake could see alien officers talking in groups. "Jake, you're getting the distress signals, aren't you?" "Yes, sir. What are our orders?" Frank looked around at the aliens behind him. "The Coalition Council is meeting now. The Nexari want to try diplomacy first. The Zephyrians say their fleets are too far away to help. The Voidkin are doing whatever it is they do when they don't want to make decisions." Jake felt anger building in his chest. "Sir, there are 100,000 human civilians on those colonies. They need help now, not next week." "I know, Jake. I've been arguing for 3 hours, but the Council hasn't authorized military action yet. They want to send a diplomatic message to the Skarn first." Lisa looked at her captain. She could see the anger in his eyes. The same anger she felt. The same anger that every human felt when they realized the truth. The galaxy didn't care about human lives. They cared about politics and rules and keeping everyone happy. But they didn't care about human children being killed by lizard monsters. Jake made a decision that would change everything. He walked to the center of the bridge and looked at his crew. Every person there was human. Every person there had joined the coalition military to protect their people. Every person there had been told to wait while their families died. "Admiral Butler," Jake said in a clear voice, "please inform the Coalition Council that humanity withdraws from the Galactic Coalition, effective immediately." Frank's eyes went wide. "Jake, you can't do that. You don't have the authority." "I have the authority to protect human lives, and that's what I'm going to do." Jake turned to his crew. "All hands, this is the captain. We are leaving Coalition space. We are going to save our people. Anyone who wants to transfer off this ship can do so now. But anyone who stays is going to war." Not one person moved to leave. Jake turned to the pilot. Lieutenant Susan Parker was 28 years old and could fly anything that moved through space. She had blonde hair and green eyes and had never lost a race or a fight. "Susan, set course for Skarn space. Maximum speed." "Yes, sir. How many ships are we bringing?" Jake smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had been pushed too far. "Just us." The Black Star turned away from Coalition space and jumped into hyperspace. Behind them, the aliens continued to debate and discuss and argue about the proper way to handle the situation. Ahead of them, the Skarn military was about to learn something important about humans. They were about to learn what happened when you hurt a human's family. The war was about to begin. The USS Black Star dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Skarn home system. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge and looked at what waited for them. His tactical officer, Lisa Carter, counted the enemy ships on her screen. "Captain, I'm reading 212 Skarn vessels. They're arranged in battle formation around their biggest ship." Lisa's voice was steady, but Jake could hear the worry underneath. "That big one is the World Render. It's their flagship. Never been beaten in a fight," Jake nodded. The World Render was 3 times the size of the Black Star. It had enough weapons to destroy a small moon. Around it, dozens of smaller warships moved in perfect patterns. The Skarn had built this fleet to attack more human colonies. They planned to wipe out every human settlement in this part of the galaxy. Commander Rick Hayes came onto the bridge. His hands were covered in grease and his uniform had burn marks on it. For the past 3 days, he had been working on the ship's systems, without sleep. "Captain, the modifications are ready." Jake looked at his chief engineer. Rick was the smartest man he had ever met. If Rick said the modifications were ready, then they were ready. But Jake still worried. What they were about to try had never been done before. "Tell me about the changes, Rick." Rick wiped his hands on a cloth and pointed to a display screen. "The reactor core is running at 150% normal power. That should give us enough energy for what we need to do. The weapon systems are connected to our mining equipment. Instead of digging through rock, we'll be digging through Skarn armor." "What about the shields?" "That's the interesting part. We don't have shields anymore. We have something better." Rick smiled like a man who had just solved an impossible puzzle. "We have a gravitational field generator. It bends space around our ship. Energy weapons will curve away from us. Physical projectiles will miss us completely." Lieutenant Susan Parker, the ship's pilot, listened to every word. She was young, but she understood what Rick was saying. The Black Star had become something new, something that had never existed before in the galaxy. "How fast can we move with these changes?" Susan asked. "Faster than anything our size should be able to move. The gravitational field reduces our mass. We can turn like a fighter but hit like a battleship." Jake looked at his crew. Every person on the bridge was human. Every person understood what they were about to do. They were going to fight 200 ships with one ship. Most people would call that suicide. Humans called it Tuesday. "Lisa, open a channel to the Skarn fleet." The main screen changed to show a Skarn commander. He was 8 feet tall, with dark green scales and yellow eyes. His teeth were sharp and his claws were long. He looked like something from a human nightmare. "I am War Leader Skarks of the Hegemony Fleet. You are one small human ship. You will surrender now or be destroyed." Jake stepped forward, so the Skarn could see him clearly. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the USS Blackstar. You attacked human colonies, you killed human families, you took human prisoners. That was a mistake." Skarks laughed. It sounded like rocks grinding together. "One ship against my entire fleet? You humans are even more stupid than we thought. You're about to learn something about humans," Jake said. "We don't know when to quit." Jake cut the transmission and turned to his crew. "Susan, take us in. Lisa, prepare all weapons. Rick, give me everything the ship has." The Blackstar moved forward into the Skarn formation. The enemy ships opened. Fire immediately. Hundreds of energy beams and plasma bolts flew toward the human ship. The crew held their breath and waited for the impact. The energy weapons curved around the Blackstar like water flowing around a rock. The plasma bolts missed completely, flying off into empty space. The gravitational field was working perfectly. "Return. Fire," Jake ordered. The Blackstar's modified weapons fired for the first time. The energy beams that came out were brighter and stronger than anything the Skarn had ever seen. The first beam hit a Skarn cruiser and cut it in half. The second beam destroyed 2 ships at once. The third beam punched through a battleship's armor like it was made of paper. "Impossible," Lisa whispered as she watched her tactical display. "Captain, we just destroyed 6 ships with 3 shots." The Skarn fleet tried to surround the Blackstar, but Susan Parker was ready for them. She flew the big ship like it was a small fighter. The Blackstar spun and twisted through the enemy formation. It moved so fast that the Skarn gunners could not track it. It moved so smoothly that it seemed to dance between the enemy ships. More Skarn ships exploded. The human weapons were too powerful and the human pilot was too good. The enemy had expected to fight a normal ship with normal weapons and normal tactics. Instead, they were fighting something that broke all the rules. War Leader Skarks watched from the bridge of the world render as his fleet was torn apart. In 10 minutes, the humans had destroyed 30 ships. His best captains were dead. His most powerful weapons were useless. "All ships, concentrate fire on the human vessel," Skarks ordered. "Bring the world render to full power. We will ram them, if we have to." The world render was the pride of the Skarn military. It had won 100 battles. Its weapons could destroy cities. Its armor had never been broken. Skarks was sure that his flagship could handle 1 human ship, no matter how strange it was. The world render fired its main weapon. The energy beam was as wide as a building and bright as a star. It hit the Blackstar directly. The human ship disappeared in a ball of light and fire. "Target destroyed," reported a Skarn officer. But then the light faded, and the Blackstar was still there. The gravitational field had bent the massive energy beam around the ship. The human vessel was completely undamaged. "Jake," Morrison smiled. "Susan, ram the world render, right through the middle." "Yes, sir." The Blackstar accelerated directly toward the Skarn flagship. The gravitational field created a bubble of twisted space around the human ship. When the Blackstar hit the world render, it did not crash. It passed through the enemy ship like a bullet through paper. The world render broke apart. Its hull split open and its crew was scattered into space. War Leader Skarks had just enough time to send one last message before his ship exploded. "Warning to all Skarn forces. The humans have a monster ship. It cannot be stopped. It cannot be destroyed. Retreat. Retreat now." The surviving Skarn ships turned and ran. They jumped into hyperspace as fast as they could, leaving behind the wreckage of half their fleet. Jake looked at the tactical display. In 20 minutes, they had destroyed over 100 enemy ships. The most powerful Skarn fleet in the galaxy had been scattered by 1 human vessel. "Lisa, any casualties on our side?" "None, Captain, not even a scratch on the hull." Jake nodded. The first battle was over, but the war was just beginning. The galaxy was about to learn what humans could do when they stopped following the rules. The yacht, USS Blackstar had entered the war, and nothing had survived its path. News of the Blackstar's victory spread across the galaxy faster than light. In Coalition headquarters, alien leaders watched the battle recordings with shock and fear. The Nexari, who thought they were the smartest species in the galaxy, could not understand how humans had built such a weapon. The Zephyrians, who prided themselves on being the greatest warriors, realized that humans had been hiding their true strength for decades. Admiral Frank Butler received an official message from the Coalition Council. They were expelling all humans from Coalition space. They called humanity's actions reckless and dangerous. They said Captain Morrison was a war criminal who needed to be stopped. Frank read the message and threw it in the trash. He had watched the recordings of New Haven Colony. He had seen the burned buildings and the dead children. He knew exactly why Jake Morrison had done what he did. Meanwhile, the USS Blackstar did not return to human space. Captain Jake Morrison had made his choice. He was going to hunt down every Skarn military base in the galaxy. He was going to make sure they never attacked human colonies again. "Lisa, what's our next target?" Jake asked his tactical officer. "Lieutenant Commander Lisa." Carter looked at her star charts. She had been studying Skarn military positions for days. "There's a supply depot at Korvac Station. They use it to fuel their warships and store weapons. If we destroy it, their entire Outer Rim fleet will be stuck without supplies." Jake nodded. "How many ships are guarding it?" 20 cruisers and about 50 smaller vessels. They think it's safe because it's deep in Skarn territory. They're wrong. Susan, set course for Korvac Station. Lieutenant Susan Parker smiled as she programmed the navigation computer. She had been flying the Blackstar for 3 days straight, and she was getting better at controlling the ship's new abilities. The gravitational field made the big ship move like a dancer. She could spin it, flip it, and make it change direction, faster than the enemy could react. Dr. Amy Johnson was working in the medical bay when the ship jumped to hyperspace. She was not treating wounded crew members because the Blackstar had not taken any damage in the battle. Instead, she was studying samples of Skarn technology that Rick Hayes had brought her. Amy was a xenobiologist, which meant she studied alien life forms. She had been examining Skarn computer systems and had found something terrible. The Skarn had been capturing humans from the colonies they attacked. They were running experiments on human prisoners, trying to understand what made humans so adaptable. Amy brought her findings to Captain Morrison. "Jake, you need to see this. The Skarn have been torturing our people. They're trying to figure out why humans can learn and change so quickly." Jake looked at the data on Amy's tablet. The pictures showed human prisoners in Skarn laboratories. They were being tested and studied like animals. Some of the prisoners were children. Jake felt something cold and hard settle in his chest. This was not just a war anymore. This was personal. The Blackstar dropped out of hyperspace near Korvac Station. The space station was huge, with dozens of docking arms for Skarn warships. Fuel tanks and weapon storage pods floated around it like metal planets. Commander Steve Walsh, the head of security, was monitoring Skarn communications. He was a big man with dark skin and careful eyes. He had been a soldier before he joined the Blackstar's crew, and he understood how to fight enemies who thought they were safe. "Captain, the Skarn are panicking. They're getting reports from survivors of the first battle. They know we're coming, but they don't know when or where." Jake smiled. Fear was a weapon, and the Skarn were learning to be afraid of humans. "Open a channel to the station," Jake ordered. The main screen showed a Skarn commander with red scales and angry yellow eyes. "Human ship, you are in Skarn territory. Leave now or be destroyed." Jake looked at the alien calmly. "I am Captain Morrison, of the USS Blackstar. You have human prisoners in your laboratories. Release them now and I might let some of you live." The Skarn commander laughed. "We have 70 ships here, human. You have one. You cannot win." Jake's expression did not change. "You're about to learn something about human mathematics. 1. Human ship equals 0 Skarn ships." The battle began immediately. The Skarn ships opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams and plasma missiles filled the space around Korvac Station. But the Black Star moved through the attack like it was dancing through raindrops. Susan Parker flew the ship in patterns that the Skarn had never seen before. She used the station's own structure as cover, hiding behind fuel tanks and weapon storage pods. When Skarn ships fired at her, she moved so that their weapons hit their own station instead. Lisa Carter fired the Black Star's weapons with perfect timing. Each shot destroyed a Skarn ship or damaged the station's defenses. The modified mining equipment cut through alien armor like it was cutting through soft rock. But this battle was different from the first one. Jake Morrison was not just destroying the enemy, he was sending a message. Chief Communications Officer Laura Miller was a young woman with red hair and a talent for electronic warfare. She had hacked into the Skarn communication system and was broadcasting on all their military frequencies. While the Black Star destroyed Skarn ships, Laura played human music through their communications. She played laughter from human children. She played recordings of human families singing together. The Skarn soldiers heard the sounds of life and joy while they watched their comrades die. "This is psychological warfare," Steve Walsh explained to the younger crew members. "We want them to understand that they're not just fighting ships and weapons. They're fighting a species that refuses to give up." The battle lasted 2 hours. When it was over, Korvac Station was a burning wreck floating in space. 70 Skarn warships had been reduced to metal debris. The Black Star had not taken a single hit, but Jake Morrison was not finished. The station's computer systems contained information about other Skarn bases. Rick Hayes and Amy Johnson worked together to decode the alien files. They found the locations of prison camps where humans were being held. "Captain," Amy said, "there are 12 facilities where they're keeping our people. Some of the prisoners have been there for months." Jake looked at the star chart showing the prison locations. Each one was heavily defended. Each one would be a major battle. Most ship captains would say it was impossible to attack them all. Jake Morrison was not most ship captains. "Plot a course to the nearest prison camp," he ordered. "We're going to get our people back." Over the next month, the USS Black Star became a legend of terror to the Skarn military. It appeared without warning at military bases, destroyed everything in sight, and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. Skarn officers began refusing dangerous assignments. Some colonies surrendered without a fight when they detected the Black Star approaching. The galaxy watched in amazement as one human ship dismantled an entire military empire. Species that had dismissed humanity as weak and boring began to reconsider their opinions. If humans could build one ship like the Black Star, how many more were they building in secret? Captain Morrison did not know that he was changing the balance of power in the galaxy. He only knew that his people had been hurt, and he was going to make sure it never happened again. The hunt had begun, and nothing could stop it. 6 months had passed since the USS Black Star began its war against the Skarn. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one expected. The Skarn hegemony, once a major power that controlled hundreds of star systems, was falling apart. Their territory had shrunk by more than half. Their trade routes were in chaos. Their military leaders were hiding in bunkers on distant planets. Other alien species watched these events with growing worry. The Nexari held emergency meetings in their crystal cities. The Zephyrians gathered their war councils on mountain peaks. The Voidkin floated in their meditation chambers, trying to see possible futures. All of them reached the same conclusion. Humans were more dangerous than anyone had realized. Admiral Korvax of the Nexari was considered the smartest military leader in the galaxy. He had studied every battle in galactic history. He had won wars against species that most others feared to fight. Now he sat in his command chamber, staring at recordings of the Black Star's attacks. "How is this possible?" he asked his aide, a younger Nexari with blue skin and silver eyes. "One ship has destroyed an empire that took centuries to build." "The humans are unpredictable, Admiral. Our computer models cannot calculate their next move because they do not follow logical patterns." Admiral Korvax nodded slowly. The Nexari were logical. They planned every move carefully. They calculated probabilities and chose the safest path to victory. Humans seemed to do the opposite. They took impossible risks and somehow made them work. The crisis reached its peak when the Zephyrian High Command received a message from their spies in Skarn territory. The spies' report was simple and terrifying. The Death Ship is coming to the core systems. The Skarn government is preparing to evacuate their homeworld. Their entire civilization is collapsing. Within days, representatives from 12 major species met on the neutral station called Harmony Point. They had never worked together before, but fear of humanity brought them together now. The human problem must be solved, declared War Chief Thrax of the Zephyrians. He was 9 feet tall with 4 arms and skin like living stone. One species cannot be allowed to destabilize the entire galaxy. I agree, said Admiral Korvax, but this is not a simple problem. The humans have shown abilities that we did not know they possessed. Their ship moves in ways that our physics say should be impossible. The Voidkin representative spoke in a voice like wind through empty spaces. We have tried to see the future paths of this conflict, but human actions create chaos in the timeline. We cannot predict what they will do next. The Alien Alliance made their decision. They would gather the largest fleet in galactic history and destroy the USS Blackstar. 500 ships from 12 different species would hunt down the human vessel and end the threat once and for all. Captain Jake Morrison did not know about the alien fleet that was coming for him. He was too busy completing his mission. The Blackstar had just finished rescuing the last group of human prisoners from a Skarn laboratory. Dr. Amy Johnson was treating the rescued humans in the medical bay while Jake stood in the corridor, watching through the window. The prisoners were in bad condition. They had been starved, tested, and tortured for months. Some of them were children who had been taken from New Haven Colony, but they were alive, and they were free. Captain, said Commander Rick Hayes as he approached, we need to talk about the ship's condition. Jake followed Rick to the engineering section. The chief engineer looked tired and worried. His hands were shaking slightly and there were dark circles under his eyes. The truth is, Jake, we're falling apart. The reactor has been running at maximum power for 6 months. The gravitational field generator is showing stress fractures. The weapon systems are burning out faster than I can repair them. How much time do we have? Maybe a few weeks, maybe less. We've pushed this ship beyond its limits and it's starting to break down. Jake nodded. He had known this day would come. The Blackstar had performed miracles, but miracles always came with a price. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Carter's voice came over the ship's communication system. Captain to the bridge. We're receiving a priority message from Coalition Space. Jake made his way to the bridge, where Lisa was waiting with a grim expression on her face. It's from Admiral Butler. He says it's urgent. The main screen showed Frank Butler sitting in what looked like a bunker. His face was pale and his voice was shaking. Jake, you need to hear this. The aliens have formed an alliance. 500 ships are coming for you. Admiral Korvax is leading them. They're calling it the largest military force in galactic history. Jake felt something cold in his stomach. 500 ships was more than even the Blackstar could handle, especially with the ship's systems failing. Where are they going? Jake asked. They're heading to New Haven. They think you'll go back there to visit the memorial site. Jake, it's a trap. Don't go there. Jake looked around his bridge at the crew who had followed him into war. Susan Parker was checking her pilot controls. Lisa Carter was analyzing tactical data. Rick Hayes was monitoring the ship's failing systems. Every one of them was ready to follow him into another impossible battle. Frank, Jake said, send a message to all human colonies. Tell them to prepare their defenses. If something happens to us, they'll need to protect themselves. Jake, don't do this. 500 ships is suicide even for you. Jake smiled. It was the same smile he had worn when he first decided to leave Coalition Space. Frank, do you remember what you taught me when I was a young officer? You said that sometimes the best defense is a good offense. Jake cut the transmission and turned to his crew. Susan, set course for New Haven. Captain, Lisa said carefully, Admiral Butler is right. This is a trap. They're using the colony memorial to draw us in. I know it's a trap, Lisa, but that memorial represents every human who died because the galaxy decided our lives didn't matter. I'm not going to let 500 alien ships sit there and mock their sacrifice. Susan programmed the navigation computer. Course laid in, Captain. Rick, how much power can you give me for one last battle? The chief engineer thought for a moment. I can give you everything the ship has, but after that we're done. The reactor will shut down permanently. Jake nodded. He understood. The Black Star had one more fight in it and then it would be over. All hands, Jake announced over the ship's communication system. This is the captain. We are going to face impossible odds one more time. 500 enemy ships are waiting for us. Our own ship is failing. By all logical calculations, we cannot win this battle. He paused, looking around the bridge at his crew. But we are not a logical species. We are humans. We do not know when to quit. We do not know when to surrender. And we do not know when to stop fighting for what is right. Today, we show the galaxy what happens when they underestimate human determination. The USS Black Star jumped into hyperspace one last time, heading toward New Haven and the largest space battle in galactic history. The USS Black Star dropped out of hyperspace at the ruins of New Haven Colony. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge and looked at the place where 50,000 humans had once lived. Now there was only debris floating in space and a small memorial beacon that marked where the colony had been. Around the memorial, 500 alien warships waited in perfect formation. Admiral Korvex had arranged his fleet in a sphere around the area, making escape impossible. Ships from 12 different species floated in the darkness, their weapons pointed at the empty space where the Black Star would appear. Captain, said Lieutenant Commander Lisa Carter, I count 512 enemy vessels, Nixari battleships, Zephyrian dreadnoughts, Voidkin energy ships, and others. This is the largest fleet ever assembled. Jake nodded. He could see the massive alien ships on his view screen. Each one was bigger than the Black Star. Each one had enough firepower to destroy a city. Together, they represented the combined military might of most of the galaxy. Any messages from the fleet? Jake asked. Yes, sir. Admiral Korvex wants to talk. The main screen changed to show the Nixari commander. He had blue skin and silver eyes that seemed to glow with intelligence. Behind him, Jake could see the bridge of the largest ship in the fleet, filled with officers from different alien species. Captain Morrison, Admiral Korvex said in a calm voice, you are surrounded. Your ship is outnumbered by more than 500 to 1. I offer you one chance to surrender. If you give up now, I will guarantee that you and your crew will be treated fairly. Jake looked at the alien commander for a long moment. Then he smiled. Admiral, let me tell you something about humans. We don't surrender. We don't give up. And we especially don't quit when we're fighting for our families. Your families are safe, Captain. The war with the Skarn is over. They have agreed to our terms. There is no need for more violence. You're right, Jake said. The war with the Skarn is over. But you missed the point. This was never just about the Skarn. This was about the galaxy learning to respect human life. Admiral Korvex's expression did not change, but Jake could see understanding in his silver eyes. You are not here to fight a battle you can win. You are here to send a message. Now you're learning. For 100 years, the galaxy has treated humans like servants. You watched our people die and called it politics. You ignored our pain and called it the price of peace. Today you learn that there is always a price for ignoring human suffering. Jake cut the transmission and turned to his crew. Commander Rick Hayes had been working frantically at his engineering station. His face was covered in sweat and his hands were shaking. Rick, how much power do we have? Everything, Captain. I've removed all the safety systems. The reactor is running at 200% capacity. The gravitational field generator is at maximum power. The weapons are charged, beyond their design limits. Rick paused and looked at his captain. This will destroy the ship, Jake. After this battle, the Black Star will be finished. Jake nodded. He had known this moment would come. How long can we maintain this power level? Maybe an hour, maybe less. Lieutenant Susan Parker was checking her pilot controls. The ship's systems were responding slowly because of the massive power drain. Captain, the gravitational field is fluctuating. I'm not sure how well the ship will maneuver. Do your best, Susan, that's all any of us can do. The battle began when the alien fleet opened fire. 500 ships unleashed their weapons at the same time. The space around New Haven lit up like a star as thousands of energy beams and plasma missiles converged on the Black Star. The gravitational field around the human ship bent and twisted the incoming attacks. Most of the weapons missed completely or curved away into empty space. But some got through. The Black Star shook as energy beams hit its hull. "Hull damage on decks 7 and 12, reported Lisa Carter. "But the armor is holding." Jake watched the tactical display as Susan piloted the ship into the alien formation. The Black Star moved like a wounded animal, slower than before but still deadly. It flew between the massive alien vessels, using their own size against them. The Black Star's weapons fired continuously. Each shot was more powerful than anything the galaxy had seen before. Nexari battleships broke apart under the concentrated fire. Zephyrian dreadnoughts exploded in balls of plasma. Voidkin energy ships simply vanished, their exotic matter dispersing into space. But there were too many enemy ships. For every alien vessel the Black Star destroyed, 2 more moved in to take its place. The human ship was taking more and more damage as its systems failed under the massive power strain. "Captain," Rick called from his station, "the reactor is overheating. I can't keep this power level much longer." "How many enemy ships are left?" Jake asked. Lisa checked her tactical display. 237, sir. We've destroyed almost 300 ships." Jake felt pride in his chest. His crew had accomplished something impossible. They had faced the largest fleet in galactic history and cut it in half. But it was not enough. The Black Star shuddered as another wave of enemy fire hit its hull. Sparks flew from control panels and the lights flickered. The ship was dying, but it was not giving up. "Admiral Corvex is transmitting," Lisa reported. The Nexari commander appeared on the screen again. His perfect formation was gone. His massive fleet had been reduced to scattered groups of damaged ships. His silver eyes showed something Jake had never seen in an alien before: respect. "Captain Morrison, you have made your point. In 30 minutes you have reminded the galaxy why humans should never be underestimated. But your ship is failing. Your crew will die if you continue this fight. I ask you again, will you surrender?" Jake looked around his bridge. His crew was still at their stations, still fighting, still refusing to give up. They were humans, and humans did not quit. "Admiral," Jake said, "let me tell you what's going to happen. The USS Black Star is going to continue fighting until every system fails. My crew and I are going to die here, in the ruins of New Haven Colony, defending the memory of our people. And every time someone in this galaxy thinks about attacking human civilians, they're going to remember this battle. They're going to remember that humans never forget, and humans never forgive." Jake paused, looking directly at the alien commander. "We entered this war, Admiral, and nothing survived our path, including us." The transmission ended. The final phase of the battle began. The Black Star fought until its weapons stopped firing. It maneuvered until its engines died. It shielded itself until the gravitational field generator overloaded and exploded. In the end, Admiral Corvex's fleet limped away from New Haven with less than 100 ships remaining. They had won the battle, but they had learned a lesson that would last for generations. 6 months later, the Galactic Coalition formally apologized to humanity and offered full membership with expanded rights and protections. Human colonies received the best defensive systems available. Human officers were promoted to positions of real authority. The galaxy had learned that humans were not weak. They were not servants. They were survivors who would fight impossible battles to protect their families. The USS Black Star had entered the war, and nothing had survived its path. But its sacrifice had changed everything. The legend lived on. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty, watching the stars through the main view screen. The space around them looked peaceful, but Jake knew better. War was coming to their galaxy, and it was unlike anything humans had ever faced before. The communication officer, Lieutenant Sam Rivers, turned in his chair. His face was pale and worried. "Captain, we're getting emergency signals from the outer colonies. Multiple ships are reporting attacks." Jake moved closer to Sam's station. What kind of attacks? Unknown vessels, sir. Silver ships that move faster than anything we've seen. They're destroying everything in their path. Sam's hands shook as he worked the controls. New Austin Colony just went silent. So did the mining station at Kepler 7. Jake felt his stomach drop. New Austin had over 2 million people. The mining station had families living there too. Any survivors? A few ships managed to escape. They're heading toward Earth, but... Sam stopped talking and listened to his headset. His face went even whiter. Captain Admiral Patterson is calling from Earth Command, Priority 1. The main screen changed to show Admiral Lisa Patterson sitting at her desk on Earth. She looked tired and scared. Behind her, Jake could see officers running back and forth. Everyone looked panicked. Jake, Admiral Patterson said without any greeting. How fast can you get the Liberty back to Earth? 3 days at maximum speed, Jake replied. Admiral, what's happening out there? Patterson rubbed her forehead. We're calling it the Zephyrian Empire. That's what the survivors are calling them. Jake, in the past week, they've destroyed 15 colonies and 12 military outposts. We've never seen ships like theirs. Jake's chief engineer, Kelly Brooks, stepped forward. She was a tough woman who had served on starships for 20 years. What kind of ships, Admiral? Crystal-like hulls that seem to bend light around them. Energy weapons that cut through our shields like they're not even there. And Jake, Patterson paused. They don't seem to be trying very hard. Our best battleships barely slow them down. The bridge went quiet. Everyone was listening now. Jake could see the fear in their eyes. The Liberty was a good ship with a good crew, but if the Navy's best battleships couldn't stop these aliens, what chance did they have? All ships are falling back to Earth, Patterson continued. We're setting up defensive positions around the solar system. It might be our last stand. Jake nodded. We'll be there in 3 days, Admiral. Good. And Jake? Bring everyone home. We're going to need every ship and every person we can get. The screen went dark. Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. These people had been through battles before, but nothing like this. Sam was just 25 years old. Kelly had grandchildren on Earth. They were all scared, but they were trying not to show it. Captain, said Dr. Amanda Price, the ship's science officer. She had been studying the reports from the surviving ships. I think we need to see this for ourselves. Jake turned to her. Amanda was smart, maybe the smartest person on the ship. If she had an idea, he wanted to hear it. The attack patterns, Amanda continued. The survivors all described the same thing. These Zephyrians attack in perfect formation. They use the same tactics every time. It's like they're following a script. What are you thinking? Jake asked. I'm thinking they've done this before. Many times. They've perfected their attack methods by conquering other species. Amanda pulled up a star map on her screen. Look at this. The survivors report seeing hundreds of different ship types in the Zephyrian fleet. Not just Zephyrian ships, but ships from other species too. Kelly stepped closer to look at the map. You think they're using captured ships? I think they're using captured everything. Ships, weapons, maybe even captured crews forced to fight for them. Amanda's voice was grim. They're not just conquerors, they're collectors. They take the best of what each species has and add it to their own forces. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. How many species do you think they've conquered? Based on the ship types the survivors reported, maybe dozens, maybe hundreds? Amanda looked directly at Jake. Captain, I think we need to learn everything we can about how they fight before we get to Earth. What do you mean? I mean we should find them, watch them, study their tactics. Amanda's idea was dangerous, and everyone knew it. If we just run back to Earth with everyone else, we'll be fighting blind. But if we can learn how they operate, Jake thought about it. The smart thing would be to follow orders and return to Earth immediately. But Amanda was right. If they arrived at Earth knowing nothing about the enemy, they would just be another ship waiting to die. Sam, Jake said, plot a course to intercept the refugee ships. I want to talk to the survivors myself. Yes, sir. Jake walked back to his command chair. Around him, his crew went to work. They were still scared, but now they had something to do. That was important. Fear could paralyze people, but having a mission gave them focus. 2 hours later, they caught up with a damaged freighter called the New Hope. The captain was an older man named Bill Carter, who had run cargo between the outer colonies for 30 years. His ship was badly damaged, with burn marks across the hull where energy weapons had hit it. Jake met with Captain Carter in the Liberty's conference room. Carter was shaking as he told his story. They came out of nowhere, Carter said. 1 minute the space around New Austin was empty. The next minute, there were hundreds of silver ships just appearing like ghosts. They didn't even warn us. Just started shooting. How long did the battle last? Jake asked. Battle? Carter laughed, but there was no humor in it. There was no battle. It was over in 20 minutes. 20 minutes to destroy everything we built over 50 years. Amanda leaned forward. Did you see how they attacked? Perfect lines. Like they were dancing instead of fighting. Our defense platforms shot at them, but their shields just absorbed everything. Then they would fire back. And whatever they hit, just disappeared. Jake exchanged looks with Amanda. This matched what the other survivors had reported. Captain Carter, Jake said carefully, we're thinking about going back. To study them. To learn how they fight. Carter stared at him like he was crazy. Son, you go back there, and you'll die. Simple as that. These things aren't like us. They don't make mistakes, they don't get tired. They just kill everything in their path and move on to the next target. After Carter left, Jake called a meeting with his senior officers. The conference room was crowded with worried faces. I know this is dangerous, Jake began, but I think Amanda is right. We need to learn about these Zephyrians before we face them in a real battle. Kelly spoke up first. Captain, with respect, one ship against their entire fleet? That's not dangerous, that's suicide. Not if we're smart about it, Amanda said. We don't engage them, we just watch, learn their patterns, figure out how they think. Sam looked nervous. But what if they detect us? Then we run, Jake said simply. The Liberty is fast. We stay at extreme range, use passive sensors only. If they spot us, we jump to hyperspace immediately. The room was quiet for a long moment. Finally, Kelly sighed. Well, I guess dying out here is better than dying at Earth and taking 2 billion people with us. Jake looked around the room. Anyone who wants to transfer to one of the refugee ships can do so. No questions asked. This is volunteer only. Nobody moved. Jake felt proud of his crew, even though he was terrified of what they were about to do. All right then, he said. Let's go learn how to fight the impossible. The USS Liberty had been following the Zephyrian fleet for 3 weeks now. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the shadows of the bridge, watching the enemy ships move across the star field like deadly silver fish. His crew worked quietly at their stations, afraid that even a whisper might give them away. Lieutenant Sam Rivers looked up from his communication console. Captain, they're attacking another system. Looks like the Centauri colonies. Jake moved to stand behind Sam's chair. On the screen, they could see dozens of Zephyrian ships moving into perfect attack formation. The alien vessels were beautiful, in a terrifying way, their crystal hulls catching and bending starlight like living diamonds. How long until they reach the colonies? Jake asked quietly. 18 minutes at their current speed, Sam replied. Should I try to warn them? Jake shook his head. They already know. Look at the long-range sensors, the colonists are already evacuating. Dr. Amanda Price looked up from her science station. For 3 weeks she had been studying every piece of data they could gather about the Zephyrians. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, and she had lost weight from skipping meals. Captain, I'm seeing the same pattern again, Amanda said. They're using formation Delta 7. That's the same formation they used at New Austin Kepler 7 and the Ross system. Jake walked over to Amanda's station. She had covered 3 monitors with charts and diagrams showing Zephyrian attack patterns. Red lines showed ship movements, blue dots showed weapon firing sequences, and green circles showed shield configurations. They really do fight the same way every time, Jake said. Not just the same way, Amanda corrected. The exact same way. Watch this. She pulled up recordings from 3 different battles. Ship positioning, weapon timing, shield rotations, everything is identical down to the second. Chief Engineer Kelly Brooks joined them at the science station. She had been working with Amanda to analyze Zephyrian technology. "It's like they're running a computer program," Kelly said. "No creativity, no adaptation, just pure efficiency." "But it works," said Lieutenant Commander Tony Garcia, the weapons officer. He had been trying to find weaknesses in Zephyrian defenses for weeks. "Look at the results. They haven't lost a single ship in any battle we've observed." Jake watched the main screen as the Zephyrian fleet reached the Centauri colonies. The attack began exactly as Amanda had predicted. The alien ships moved into formation, their weapons charged in perfect synchronization, and they began systematically destroying the human defensive platforms. "Time to destruction of the first colony?" Jake asked. Sam checked his readings. 14 minutes, sir." "Same as New Austin," Amanda noted. "Same as all the others." Jake felt frustrated. They had learned a lot about how the Zephyrians fought, but they still had no idea how to stop them. The alien ships were faster, stronger, and better armed than anything humanity had ever built. Worse, they fought with machine-like precision. That left no room for error. "Captain," called Sergeant Major Beth Collins from the back of the bridge. She had been working with the ship's Marines to study human military history. "I think I found something." Jake turned to look at her. Beth was a tough soldier who had fought in the colonial wars. If anyone could find a way to fight in superior enemy, it would be her. "What did you find?" "I've been studying every underdog victory in human history," Beth said. "David and Goliath, the American Revolution, the Battle of Thermopylae. Every time a smaller force beat a bigger one. And they all have one thing in common. The bigger force was overconfident. They thought they knew exactly how the battle would go, so they didn't adapt when things changed." Amanda looked interested. "You think the Zephyrians are overconfident?" "I think they're worse than overconfident," Beth replied. "I think they're trapped by their own success. They've won so many battles the same way that they can't imagine losing." Tony spoke up from his weapons station. "But their shields are still impenetrable. Their weapons still cut through our hulls like paper. Overconfidence doesn't change physics." "No," Beth agreed. "But it might change tactics. Captain, what if we could make them fight differently? Force them out of their comfort zone?" Jake thought about this. "You mean make them improvise?" "Exactly. These aliens have conquered dozens of species, maybe hundreds. But I bet they've never faced an enemy that refused to fight by the rules." On the main screen, the first Centauri colony exploded in a ball of fire. The Zephyrian fleet moved on to the next target without pausing. 12 minutes later, that colony was gone too. "They're so efficient," Amanda muttered. "No wasted motion, no unnecessary destruction. They destroy only what they need to destroy to achieve their goals." "That's another weakness," Beth said. "They're not emotional. They don't get angry or frustrated, but humans do. And sometimes anger makes us do things that don't make sense to a logical mind." Jake began to see what Beth was getting at. "You think we should make them angry?" "I think we should make them confused. Do things they don't expect. Force them to make decisions they've never had to make before." Kelly looked skeptical. "One ship against their entire fleet? Even if we confuse them, we're still outnumbered 1,000 to 1. "Not if we're smart about it," Beth replied. "We don't have to beat their whole fleet. We just have to prove that they can be beaten. Show other species that these aliens aren't invincible." Jake walked back to his command chair. Around him, his crew continued their work. They had all volunteered for this mission, knowing it was probably suicide. But now, for the first time in weeks, Jake felt a spark of hope. "Amanda," he said, "I want you to analyze their communication patterns. See if you can figure out how their command structure works." "Already on it, Captain. I think they use a rigid hierarchy. Lower-ranking ships can't act without permission from higher-ranking ones. Tony, I want you to design some unconventional attack patterns, things that don't follow standard military doctrine." "Unconventional how?" "Surprise me," Jake said. "Beth, work with Tony on this. I want tactics that would make no sense to a logical mind." "Yes, sir." Jake looked at the main screen. where the Zephyrian fleet was finishing its destruction of the Centauri system. In a few hours, they would move on to the next target and the next. Eventually, they would reach Earth. "Kelly," Jake said, "how's our stealth system holding up?" "So far, so good. We're running dark and staying at maximum sensor range. They haven't detected us yet." "Good. Because I think it's time we stopped just watching." Sam turned in his chair. "Captain, I want to test a theory. We're going to try something the Zephyrians have never seen before." "What's that, sir?" Jake smiled for the first time in weeks. "We're going to fight dirty." The bridge went quiet except for the hum of the ship's systems. Everyone understood what the captain was suggesting. They were going to attack the most powerful military force in the galaxy. It was insane. It was impossible. But as Jake looked at the faces of his crew, he saw something that surprised him. They weren't afraid anymore, they were excited. For the first time since this war began, they had a plan. It might not work. They would probably die trying. But they were going to show the Zephyrians something they had never seen before. Humans who refused to give up, no matter how impossible the odds. "All right, people," Jake said. "Let's teach these aliens what happens when they pick a fight with humanity." Captain Jake Morrison watched the lone Zephyrian scout ship through the Liberty's main screen. The silver vessel moved through space like a hunting shark, scanning the debris field where the human colony of Haven 7 used to exist. It was perfect for their first test. "Target acquired," Lieutenant Commander Tony Garcia reported from his weapons station. "One scout ship, no escorts. Just like we planned." Jake nodded. For the past week, they had been tracking individual Zephyrian ships, looking for the right opportunity. This scout was separated from the main fleet by several light hours. If their plan worked, they could attack and escape before reinforcements arrived. "Amanda, any change in their scanning patterns?" Jake asked. Dr. Amanda Price shook her head. "Same routine they've used everywhere else. Systematic grid search checking for survivors or salvageable technology. They're not expecting any trouble." "Good. Ryan, are you ready?" Chief Navigator Ryan Holmes looked nervous, but his hands were steady on the controls. "Hyperspace jump calculated, Captain. It's going to be close." Jake had asked Ryan to plan something that broke every rule of space combat. Instead of approaching from a safe distance, they would jump out of hyperspace almost on top of the enemy ship. No one had ever tried such a dangerous maneuver in battle. "Kelly, how are the engines?" Chief Engineer Kelly Brooks checked her readings. "Running at 110%. I can give you maybe 5 minutes at this level before we risk a core breach." "That's all we need." "Beth, your Marines ready?" Sergeant Major Beth Collins nodded from her position near the tactical display. "Ready, Captain. If this works, we'll have about 30 seconds to gather data before we have to run." Jake took a deep breath. Around him, his crew waited for the order. They had spent days planning this attack, but they all knew it was still mostly guesswork. They were about to test their theories against an enemy that had never lost a battle. "All right, people, let's make history. Ryan, execute jump." The stars disappeared as the Liberty dropped into hyperspace. For a few seconds, they traveled through the strange blue-white tunnel between normal space and the higher dimensions. Then, they emerged directly behind the Zephyrian scout ship, so close that Jake could see details on the alien hull. "Fire!" Jake shouted. Tony's fingers flew over his controls. Instead of firing in neat, organized patterns like human ships normally did, he unleashed every weapon at once in a chaotic barrage. Plasma cannons, missile launchers, and railguns all fired at different times and different angles. The Zephyrian ship's shields flared as they absorbed the attack. But something was wrong. The shields flickered and wavered instead of maintaining their usual steady glow. "Their shields are fluctuating," Amanda reported excitedly. "The random firing pattern is creating interference." The Zephyrian ship began to turn, trying to bring its weapons to bear on the Liberty, but Ryan was already moving, spinning their ship in a wild corkscrew pattern that no military academy would ever teach. "They're trying to lock onto us," Sam reported from communications. "But they can't get a clear targeting solution." Jake watched the enemy ship struggle to respond. For the first time, he was seeing Zephyrians react to something unexpected. Their perfect formation was broken. Their systematic approach was failing. "Tony, keep firing. Don't let them recover." The weapons officer grinned as he unleashed another barrage. This time, he mixed explosive missiles with energy weapons and even launched some of their mining charges, creating a confusing cloud of explosions around the enemy ship. One of the mining charges detonated close to the Zephyrian hull. To everyone's surprise, it actually damaged their shields. "Did you see that?" Kelly shouted from her station. "The mining charge worked. Their shields aren't designed to handle that type of explosion." "Amanda, are you recording this?" "Every second, Captain. This is incredible data." The Zephyrian ship finally managed to fire back. A beam of pure energy lanced out toward the Liberty, but Ryan was ready. He threw their ship into a spiral dive that brought them under the enemy's firing arc. "Time to go," Jake ordered. "Ryan, get us out of here. Jumping now." The Liberty disappeared back into hyperspace just as more Zephyrian ships began arriving. They had spent less than 2 minutes in combat, but it felt like hours. When they emerged in normal space, the crew was quiet for a moment. Then Tony let out a whoop of joy. "We did it. We actually hurt them." "More than that," Amanda said, studying her readings. "We confused them. Look at this communication traffic I intercepted. They're asking their command ship for new orders. They don't know how to respond to our tactics." Jake felt a surge of hope. "What exactly did we learn?" Amanda pulled up her analysis on the main screen. 3 things. First, their shields can be disrupted by chaotic energy patterns. Second, they can't target effectively when we move unpredictably. And third, they have to ask permission before changing their tactics. "That last one is important," Beth added. "It means there's a delay in their responses. If we can keep them confused long enough, we can stay ahead of their decision-making process." Kelly looked at her engineering reports. "Captain, we took some damage from our own maneuvers. The engines are stressed and we lost some hull plating from those crazy spins Ryan pulled. But we're alive," Ryan said with a grin. "And they're probably very confused right now." Jake walked to the center of the bridge. "All right, people. This was just the beginning. We proved that these aliens can be hurt. Now we need to figure out how to hurt them badly enough to matter." Over the next 2 weeks, the Liberty conducted 6 more hit-and-run attacks. Each time, they tried different tactics. Sometimes they attacked from multiple directions using fighter drones. Sometimes they used the gravity wells of nearby planets to slingshot around obstacles. Once they even hid inside an asteroid field and launched mining charges like torpedoes. Every attack taught them something new. The Zephyrians were incredibly powerful, but they were also predictable. They responded to every human tactic with standard countermeasures from their military manual. The problem was that humans weren't following any manual. "They're getting frustrated," Amanda reported after their latest attack. "I'm intercepting more and more communications between their ships and their command structure. They're requesting new tactics to deal with us." "Are they getting them?" Jake asked. "Some, but it takes time. Their command ship has to analyze our tactics, develop countermeasures, and then transmit new orders to the entire fleet. We're moving faster than their bureaucracy can handle." Jake nodded. This was what Beth had predicted. The Zephyrians' greatest strength was also their weakness. Their perfect organization made them efficient, but it also made them slow to adapt. "Captain," Sam said from his communication station, "I'm picking up a priority transmission from Earth Command." The main screen flickered to show Admiral Patterson. She looked even more tired than before, but there was something different in her eyes. Hope, maybe. "Jake, I don't know what you're doing out there, but keep doing it. We're getting reports from all over the galaxy. Zephyrian fleets are slowing down, changing course, even stopping their attacks to regroup. You've got them worried." Jake felt a chill of excitement. "Admiral, are you saying our attacks are affecting their entire campaign?" "That's exactly what I'm saying. For the first time since this war started, they're not moving forward on schedule. Whatever you're doing, it's working." After the transmission ended, Jake looked around at his crew. They had started this mission hoping to learn something useful. Instead, they had discovered something incredible. The Zephyrians could be beaten. "All right, people," Jake said. "It's time to take this to the next level. We've been annoying them with pinpricks. Now we need to hit them where it really hurts." "What do you have in mind?" Amanda asked. Jake smiled. "We're going to attack their command ship, The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew that the Zephyrian command ship was the most heavily defended vessel in their fleet. It was surrounded by dozens of escort ships and protected by shields that could deflect the firepower of an entire human battle group. "Captain," Kelly said carefully, "that's not just dangerous, that's impossible." "So was everything else we've done," Jake replied. "But we've learned something these aliens don't understand. Sometimes impossible is just another word for unexpected." Beth stood up from her station. "I'm with the captain. We've shown that they can bleed. Now let's show them they can die." One by one, the rest of the crew nodded their agreement. They had come too far to stop now. The Liberty was just one ship against an empire that had conquered galaxies. But they were one ship that refused to give up, and sometimes that was enough to change everything. The asteroid field around the destroyed Mars colony looked like a graveyard of broken dreams. Captain Jake Morrison floated in his command chair aboard the USS Liberty, watching chunks of red rock drift past the main screen. Somewhere in this debris field, they would make their last stand. "Kelly, report," Jake said quietly. Chief Engineer Kelly Brooks looked up from her station with tired eyes. "We've stripped everything non-essential, Captain. The recreational areas, the science labs, even half the crew quarters. I've converted it all into extra reactor shielding and weapon power." Jake nodded. For the past 3 days his crew had been turning the Liberty into a weapon designed for one purpose: to ram the Zephyrian command ship and detonate their reactor at the moment of impact. It was a suicide mission, and everyone knew it. "Tony, weapon status?" Lieutenant Commander Tony Garcia ran his hands through his hair. "All weapon systems modified for maximum damage output. We'll have maybe 30 seconds of sustained fire before the power relays burn out. After that," he shrugged. "After that we ram," Jake finished. "Amanda, any change in the Zephyrian fleet's approach?" Dr. Amanda Price checked her long-range sensors. "They're still coming, Captain. 200 ships, just like we predicted. The command ship is in the center of the formation, protected by escorts on all sides." Jake felt his stomach tighten. 200 ships against one. Those were impossible odds, even for humans who specialized in impossible situations. "Sam, any response to our challenge?" Lieutenant Sam Rivers shook his head. "Nothing, sir. Radio silence from the entire fleet. 3 hours ago, Jake had broadcast a message on all frequencies, both human and Zephyrian. He had challenged their war marshal to single combat, ship against ship, winner takes all. It was a desperate bluff, but he hoped the alien commanders' pride might make him accept. "Captain," said Sergeant Major Beth Collins from her position near the tactical display, "the crew is asking for a final briefing." Jake looked around the bridge at his officers. These people had followed him into hell itself. They deserved to know exactly what they were facing. "Put me on ship-wide communication." Sam nodded and opened the channel. "You're on, Captain." Jake stood up and faced the main screen, knowing that 800 people throughout the ship were watching him. "This is Captain Morrison. In approximately 1 hour, the Zephyrian fleet will arrive at our position. We all know why we're here. Earth needs time to prepare its defenses, and we're going to buy them that time." He paused, looking at the faces of his bridge crew. They were scared, but they were also determined. "I won't lie to you. We probably won't survive this battle. But we're going to make it count. Every second we keep that fleet busy is another second for our families to prepare. Every shot we fire is one less shot they can fire at Earth." Cock took a deep breath. "We've learned something important over the past few weeks. These aliens aren't invincible. They can be hurt, they can be confused, and they can be beaten. Today we're going to prove that to the entire galaxy. The Liberty has always been more than just a ship. It's been our home, our family. And today, it's going to be our weapon. We're going to show the Zephyrians what happens when they threaten humanity." Jake looked directly into the camera. "I'm proud to serve with all of you. Now let's go save our species." The communication channel closed. Around the bridge, his crew went back to their preparations. But Jake could see something in their eyes that hadn't been there before. Peace, maybe. They had accepted what was coming. "Captain," Amanda said suddenly, "I'm detecting hyperspace distortions. They're arriving. The main screen filled with silver ships emerging from hyperspace in perfect formation. The Zephyrian fleet spread out across space like a deadly flower, with the massive command ship at its center. Jake had seen recordings of Zephyrian vessels before, but seeing 200 of them in person was overwhelming. "My God," Kelly whispered. "Look at the size of that command ship." The Zephyrian flagship was enormous, easily 10 times larger than the Liberty. Its crystalline hull caught the light from the distant sun and threw it back in rainbow patterns. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Sam, are you picking up any communications?" "Yes, sir. They're broadcasting on multiple frequencies." Sam listened to his headset for a moment, then looked up in surprise. "Captain, they're responding to your challenge. What do they say?" "The War Marshal will accept single combat. He says—" Sam paused. "He says he's curious to see how the primitive humans plan to die." Jake felt a surge of anger, but he pushed it down. Anger was good. It would keep him focused. "Well, we'll just have to show him." The Zephyrian fleet began moving into a wide circle around the asteroid field. Jake realized they were creating an arena for the duel. Apparently, the War Marshal wanted his entire fleet to watch him destroy the Liberty. "Ryan, take us out to meet them." Chief Navigator Ryan Holmes engaged. The engines. The Liberty moved out of the asteroid field toward the center of the Zephyrian formation. As they approached, one ship detached itself from the fleet and moved to meet them. It was the command ship itself. "He's actually doing it," Amanda said, in amazement. "The War Marshal is coming out to fight us personally." Jake studied the approaching vessel. Up close, it was even more impressive. Energy fields danced across its hull like living lightning. Weapons ports opened and closed in what looked like breathing patterns. It was more like a living creature than a spaceship. "Tony, target their shield generators." "Which ones, Captain?" "I count at least 50, Jake smiled grimly. "All of them." The two ships approached each other slowly, like ancient knights riding to meet in single combat. Around them, the Zephyrian fleet watched in perfect silence. "Captain," Beth said from her station, "I've been thinking about our boarding plan." Jake turned to her. The boarding plan was their backup option in case the ramming attack failed. Beth would lead a team of Marines onto the Zephyrian command ship to try to capture their War Marshal. What about it? If we can take him alive, it might throw their entire command structure into chaos. These aliens rely on rigid hierarchy. Remove the leader and they might not know what to do. That's assuming we can get close enough to board them. "We will," Beth said with certainty. "One way or another, we're getting onto that ship." The Zephyrian command ship was now close enough that Jake could see details on its hull. Strange symbols glowed along the sides, probably their equivalent of ship markings. Smaller vessels moved around it like insects around a giant. "Sam, open a channel to the War Marshal." "Channel open, sir." Jake stood up and faced the main screen. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel Liberty. I'm ready to begin." The screen flickered and showed the interior of the Zephyrian command ship. The War Marshal stood in the center of what looked like a crystal garden. He was tall and thin, with silver skin that seemed to glow from within. When he spoke, his voice was like music played through broken glass. "I am War Marshal Keithvar of the Zephyrian Empire. You have amused me with your pathetic attacks on my scouts. Now you will die with honor, as befits a warrior." "We'll see about that," Jake replied. Keithvar tilted his head, studying Jake with eyes like black diamonds. "You interest me, human. Your species fights with no logic, no organization. Yet you have caused me considerable inconvenience. How do you explain this?" Jake smiled. "We're just getting started." The War Marshal's expression didn't change, but Jake could sense his confusion. Zephyrians clearly weren't used to enemies who talked back. "Begin," Keithvar said simply. The duel was about to start. Jake looked around his bridge one last time, at the faces of the crew who had become his family. They were ready. "All right, people," he said quietly. "Let's show them what humanity is made of." The Liberty turned toward the massive Zephyrian command ship and began its final attack run. Around them, 200 enemy vessels watched in silence. as one small human ship, prepared to challenge an empire. The battle began in silence. The USS Liberty and the Zephyrian command ship faced each other across empty space like two ancient warriors preparing to duel. Captain Jake Morrison gripped the arms of his command chair as War Marshal Kethvar's massive vessel began to glow with building energy. "Tony, fire everything!" Jake shouted. Lieutenant Commander Tony Garcia unleashed every weapon the Liberty had: plasma cannons, missile launchers, and railguns, all fired at once in the chaotic pattern they had practiced. The barrage struck the Zephyrian ship's shields, creating a light show of explosions and energy discharges. The enemy ship barely moved. Its shields absorbed the attack easily, barely flickering under the assault. Then Kethvar fired back. A beam of pure energy lanced out from the command ship, so bright it hurt to look at. Chief Navigator Ryan Holmes threw the Liberty into a wild spin, but the beam clipped their port side. Alarms blared as sections of the hull melted away like ice in fire. "Hull breach on decks 7 through 9, Chief Engineer Kelly Brooks shouted over the noise. "Emergency force fields are holding, but barely." Jake felt the ship shudder around him. They had taken more damage in 5 seconds than in all their previous battles combined, but they were still alive, and that surprised him. "Amanda, why aren't we dead?" Dr. Amanda Price was frantically studying her sensors. "He's toying with us. That shot could have destroyed us completely, but he aimed for a non-critical section." Jake understood. The War Marshal wasn't trying to kill them quickly. He wanted to humiliate them in front of his fleet. That arrogance might be their only chance. "Ryan, take us into the asteroid field." "Sir, do it. Use the asteroids as cover." The Liberty dove toward the debris field where Mars used to orbit. Ryan weaved between chunks of rock and metal, using them as shields against the Zephyrian ship's massive weapons. Kethvar followed, but his ship was too large to maneuver easily among the asteroids. The War Marshal was forced to either blast through the debris or move more carefully. "He's getting frustrated," Amanda reported. "I'm picking up communications between his ship and the fleet. They're asking permission to assist him." "What's his response?" "He's refusing help. His pride won't let other ships join the duel." Jake smiled grimly. "Good. Tony, prepare the mining charges." They had loaded their cargo bay with every mining explosive they could find in the Mars debris field. The charges weren't military weapons, but they had discovered that Zephyrian shields weren't designed to handle that type of explosion. "Charges. Ready, Captain. Wait for my signal." The Liberty spun around a large asteroid and came face to face with the command ship. For a moment, the two vessels hung motionless, staring at each other across a few hundred meters of space. Jake could see War Marshal Kethvar through the crystalline hull of his ship. The alien looked angry now, his silver skin glowing brighter with emotion. "Tony, fire the charges, all of them." Dozens of mining explosives shot out from the Liberty's cargo bay. They weren't guided missiles, just simple bombs with timers. But they filled the space between the two ships with a cloud of explosions. The Zephyrian shields flared and sparked as they tried to handle the chaotic energy patterns. For the first time in the battle, Kethvar's ship actually moved backward, pushed by the force of the blasts. "It's working," Kelly shouted. "His shields are fluctuating." Jake saw their chance. "Ram them, full speed." Ryan pushed the engines to maximum power. The Liberty shot forward through the cloud of explosions, heading straight for the Zephyrian command ship. But Kethvar was ready. Energy beams lanced out from dozens of weapon ports, all targeted at the Liberty's reactor core. The human ship's shields collapsed instantly under the concentrated fire. "Reactor containment failing," Kelly screamed. "We have maybe 30 seconds before core breach." The Liberty was dying, but it was still moving forward. Jake could see the crystalline hull of the enemy ship growing larger on the main screen. They were going to make it. They were actually going to ram the most powerful ship in the Zephyrian fleet. Then everything changed. "Captain," Sergeant Major Beth Collins shouted from the back of the bridge. "My Marines are reporting something impossible. The cargo bay doors are opening on the Zephyrian ship." Jake spun around to stare at her. "What? They're opening docking bays. I think they want us to board them." Amanda looked up from her sensors in amazement. "She's right, they're not trying to destroy us anymore. They're trying to capture us." Jake felt a chill of understanding. Kethvar wasn't just arrogant, he was curious. The war marshal had never faced an enemy like humans before, and he wanted to study them up close. "New plan," Jake announced. "Beth, get your Marines ready for boarding action." "Sir? If they want to capture us, we'll let them, right up until we're inside their ship." Beth grinned fiercely. "Understood, Captain." The Liberty crashed into the Zephyrian command ship, but not in the way Jake had planned. Instead of ramming the hull, they were pulled into a massive docking bay by some kind of tractor beam. The impact was hard, but not fatal. Emergency lights flickered on as the ship's systems began shutting down. The reactor was still critical, but they had maybe 5 minutes before it exploded. "Everyone out," Jake ordered. "Beth, lead the way." Sergeant, Major Collins and her Marines were already moving. They had spent weeks planning for this moment, studying the layout of Zephyrian ships and preparing for close combat in alien environments. The cargo bay of the enemy ship was enormous, filled with crystalline structures that hummed with energy. Zephyrian soldiers were waiting for them, but they clearly expected the humans to surrender. They were wrong. Beth's Marines attacked immediately, using weapons and tactics that the aliens had never seen. Instead of fighting in formation, they scattered and used the crystal structures as cover. Instead of firing in organized volleys, they shot from all directions at once. The Zephyrians tried to respond with their standard tactics, but their perfect formations were useless in the chaotic environment of their own cargo bay. "This way," Beth shouted, leading a charge toward what looked like a control room. Jake followed with the rest of his crew. Behind them, the Liberty's reactor was counting down to explosion. They had maybe 3 minutes now. They fought their way through corridors filled with confused aliens. The Zephyrians had never dealt with enemies who fought inside their own ships. Their weapons were designed for space combat, not close-quarters battle. Finally, they reached the command center. War Marshal Kethvar stood in the middle of his crystal garden surrounded by his officers. He looked more puzzled than afraid. "Impossible," he said in his musical voice. "You were defeated. Why do you continue to fight?" Jake stepped forward, his weapon pointed at the alien commander. "Because we're human. We don't know how to quit. But you have lost. Your ship is destroyed. Your species will be conquered. What purpose does this serve?" Jake smiled. "You really don't understand, do you? This was never about winning. This was about sending a message." "What message?" "That you can be beaten." Before Kethavar could respond, Jake activated his communicator. "Sam, are you ready?" Lieutenant Sam Rivers' voice crackled over the radio from somewhere else in the ship. "Ready, Captain. Broadcasting on all frequencies." Jake looked directly at War Marshal Kethavar. "You've conquered dozens of species because they fought the way you expected them to fight. But humans are different. We don't follow your rules. We don't use your tactics. And we never ever give up." "This proves nothing," Kethavar said, but his voice was uncertain. "It proves everything," Jake replied. "Your own fleet is watching this. They're seeing their invincible war marshal captured by a handful of humans. How long do you think it will take for word to spread across the galaxy?" Through the crystal windows of the command center, Jake could see the other Zephyrian ships. They were moving in confused patterns, no longer maintaining their perfect formations. "Sir," Beth said quietly, "the Liberty's reactor is about to go." Jake nodded. They had done what they came to do. The message was sent. Now it was time to pay the price. But as he watched the Zephyrian fleet through the windows, he realized something incredible was happening. Ships were breaking formation. Some were actually retreating. Others were just hanging motionless in space as if their crews didn't know what to do. For the first time in their history, the Zephyrians were facing an enemy they couldn't understand. And fear was spreading through their ranks like wildfire. The Liberty exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the asteroid field. But by then the real damage was already done. The myth of Zephyrian invincibility was broken. War Marshal Kethvar stared at the expanding cloud of debris where the human ship had been. "What have you done?" he whispered. Jake smiled as Zephyrian guards surrounded him and his crew. "We've shown the galaxy that you can bleed, and once people know you can bleed, they'll never stop fighting you." 6 months later, the Zephyrian Empire was crumbling. Species across 3 galaxies had risen in rebellion, using the tactics that the crew of the USS Liberty had developed. The war wasn't over, but for the first time humanity and their allies believed they could win. Captain Jake Morrison and his crew had paid the ultimate price, but their sacrifice had changed everything. They had proven that sometimes one ship and one crew who refused to surrender can alter the fate of the entire galaxy.